Ya.
Without any further ado, I would like to briefly introduce our speaker today, Professor Khoo Gaik Cheng. She is an associate professor of film and television at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, where she teaches Southeast Asian cinema and master's seminar on post-colonial theory and post-humanism. She is also attached to the University of Nottingham Asia Research Institute as the director. She has been researching extensively on various critical areas, ranging from food, identity, heritage, migrations, to food ecology and sustainability. For the talk today, it will be a 1-hour presentation by Professor Khoo Gaik Cheng, followed by the discussion by me for about 15 to 20 minutes, where I will pose some questions and response before we open to the floor of our Q&A sessions. Today, through the talk, she is going to share her insight on questions of representations of modernity through Dain Said films of the highly controversial Dukun. The film has been postponed for almost 12 years in Malaysia because the high-profile gruesome murders case it was being loosely based on. The talk also will touch on the film Interchange, which has been directed by the same director, Dain Said, in 2016. In this talk, we are looking at questions of cosmopolitanism, modernities, and how the reconstruction of multifaceted binaries of modernity takes place in post-colonial Malaysia. Apart from that, she is also looking at different modes of complex epistemologies which grapples with the tensions, anxieties, and contradictions on how the society coming to terms and continuously negotiating with the questions of modernity. Please welcome Professor.
I'm going to adjust No, it's okay, because then I won't be able to read. So first, I'd like to thank the organizers of the Malaysian Film Festival for inviting me to speak at this conference. In this International Center for Cultural Studies and the Department of Foreign Languages and Literatures, in particular, Liu Kiet, Joyce, Liu, and the curators, Shou, Zikri, and Yin. My first trip to Taiwan was for a transnational feminisms conference in 2008, and I was invited to speak about film, but I ended up giving a paper on mamak stalls or Indian Muslim food places. And then for my second trip, I was here for the Chinese cinemas Liverhall Network Symposium, and we were actually in this hall watching an young film. But I think again I disappointed my hosts for not really presenting on Malaysian cinema. So when I was invited this round, even though I've mostly been writing about food and Korean migrants in Malaysia, I felt that the third time round I really should be an obliging guest and deliver, partly as I like Taiwan a lot and I'd really love to come back. So the theme of this conference touches on an age of anxiety based on the issues and genres reflected in the film section and film selection and contemporary politics in Malaysia, ethnic relations, gender disparity, the denial of human rights, freedom of expression, and nationalist discourses. However, one might want to trace the origins of this age of anxiety. Did it begin with Mahathir's first prime ministership? For the purposes of this festival, I will link the age of anxiety with a project of modernity that began from the 1970s that launched the NEP, the National Economic Plan. That's from 1971 to 1990. sped up industrialization and urbanization. And through the Mahathir years of the national car industry, mega projects, and we saw like the 80s, privatization and development, the prosperous 90s, the 98 financial crisis and reformasi, before the shift to the digital industry and the birth of the digital and independent filmmakers, whom I have characterized as cosmopolitan. And so with the next few slides, what I'm trying to suggest here is that these are the films that were being made in the 2000s, but that reflected the kind of political regimes that we were living under. According to, so part of the anxiety for Mahathir had been to reconcile Islam with material progress and to show that Islam was not an obstacle to progress. According to Sherman, who proposed Islam Mahathir's way, the latter argued that when properly understood, Islam even compelled its adherents to work hard and seek God's pleasure by advancing materially the Muslim Ummah. This is the Muslim Brotherhood and the community of the nation. In his speeches from the 80s, Mahathir showed that development was a noble struggle and exemplified faith in action. Mahathir was, of course, directing such speeches towards the new Malays, the direct beneficiaries of the national economic policy. Fearful of the Malays becoming economically left behind due to his internalized colonial discourse of Muslim fatalism and Malay indolence, he worked Islam into developmentalist discourse, building on the narrative of progress achieved during the golden age of Islam. Mahathir saw that period of Islamic civilization as a high point that should be emulated by today's Muslims, and the way back to that is through working hard, having discipline, and striving for material success. The age of anxiety continues into the raucous Badawi years, which saw the broadening of civil society and democratization, perhaps as a continuation of Mahathir's Islam as a civil religion, according to Sherman, that unfortunately created a backlash with reactionary ethno-nationalists and simultaneously increased ethnic tensions. So this is the period of street demonstrations, Bursaid, Indra, lawyers and indigenous people marching candlelight vigils. Unsurprisingly, we saw cosmopolitical endeavors like these films here, Pete Teo's short films, 15 Malaysia, Gado by Namran, The Tiger Factory, etc., etc. Many more, as independent filmmakers increasingly used film to express the corruption that bled into their daily lives. And this is definitely what happened with Country Movie in Survival Guide, her section, which was about radioactive, a case in history where radioactive, a corporation that was irresponsible. So, such high levels of economic, not to mention moral corruption, raised anxiety among citizens who undertook to becoming cosmopolitan patriots in street demonstrations, or those who were reacting to the politics of race and religion. Indeed, Sherman pointed out that Mahathir's Islam, quote, may help to support the eventual emergence of Islam as a civil religion in Malaysia, as manifested in the what he calls cosmopolitanism of the street, and the everyday instances of mutual understanding that still characterize everyday life in multicultural and multi-religious relation. One might say in that manner, Yasmin Ahmad's films, which you will watch, not so much Kubra, but Wana, best exemplify Mahathir's Islam of rational, compassionate, and open-minded Muslim individuals for whom Islam is a way of life. The presence of social commentary in independent films contrasted the initial independent films whose cosmopolitanism meant emphasizing the individual subject and conveying universal human values based on strong characterization. So this generation of Malaysian indie filmmakers I refer to are internet babies, the first to resort to the digital medium to make films when the mainstream industry was still making films on 35mm, the first to test the slash in the Malay/Malaysian film industry by making films that were multilingual instead of mostly in Bahasa Malaysia. The only recognized national language at that time that represented ethnic communities in a respectful manner and pushed for inclusion and recognition by the state and mainstream industry. The independents were cosmopolitan in the sense of working across ethnic barriers, having an openness towards the culture of others as reflected in sensitive portrayals of the racial other, and being influenced by global film styles. And this trend then continues in the form of films today produced by Amir Mohammed's new film company, Kuman Pictures, in films such as Fly By Night, mostly Mandarin language film, but directed by Malay Zahir Omar. However, significant changes in the film industry, for example, the blurring of definitions between mainstream and independent, further advancements and evolution in digital technology, and the difference kind of between indie language and all these kind of further advancements and changes kind of make the cosmopolitan framework difficult to contain and apply to a discussion and analysis of Malaysian films in general. And I guess what I'm trying to do is explain why I didn't write the paper that I first submitted as an abstract. Okay, so that said, this paper will take up some of the themes of the festival, namely by addressing the discourse of Malaysian modernity in the age of anxiety through a discussion of two films by Dain Said set in the urban cosmopolis where the mystical exists. Okay, so this is just 3 films, Dain's films. So I won't talk so much about Dukun, but Dukun is based on this woman who, based on a woman named Mona Fandi, who was caught for murdering a politician who had gone to see her in order to get more power, and who was paying her a lot of money to be invincible, which is sort of what you would see in the film. But the film is much more complicated than that. The film is a semi-law film / thriller. So it's like Law and Order, except more interesting than that because it's got supernatural elements. The other film that I'll be talking about is Interchange. Okay, so Interchange has got that beautiful woman over there. She is the femme fatale, but her name is Eva, and the other guy with the head cut off, shirtless guy is Adam. So Adam and Eva, and the guy in the center running and at the top is the cop. Okay, so Adam is a forensic photographer who is called by his friend Man, the cop, to help him solve a string of ritual murders in a case. Behind that, the bit of red that you see there is what I call the Birdman. So he's an Indonesian actor who plays a creature that is man but has kind of claws, and he transforms into a hornbill. Okay, so basically the story is that the Tinggal, supposedly a tribe from central Borneo, when this Norwegian explorer went through central Borneo, he took a photograph of these women, and they then quickly ran to the river and washed themselves because they thought taking a photograph was stealing their souls. So the film plays with this idea of their souls being stolen and being trapped in this middle world. So they're not alive and they're not quite dead. And the string of murders is basically performed by Eva and the Birdman to try and release the souls. Okay. So I'm going to talk about Dain's films as cosmopolitan because they have these transnational references. And noir comes foremost to mind. Noir is most clearly manifested in the cinematography of all his 3 films, including Nohan. In interviews, Dain names as influences the works of Hermann Hesse and Dostoevsky, and this is especially with regard to the character of Adam in Interchange. He explained that there were no such local literary characters he could draw upon that had these arcs, the sense of, what am I doing here? What does life mean? What am I here to do? Okay, and Dain clarified that he grew up with European cinema, Polish directors, German directors, Terrence Malick, as well as as well as the old noirs. Dukun and Interchange reflect Malaysia's multi-ethnic diversity, with characters interchange speaking a mixture of Malay and English, Sabahan Malay, Indonesian, and even Hokkien, or Fujian. But more important than the multi-ethnic representation is the placing side by side of two or more systems of belief: Western logic and science, Islam, and the black arts or magic. And in this representation of multiple epistemic systems that seemingly compete with one another, it is Western modernity that is challenged and exposed as limiting a full understanding of the culture of the region. So I'm going to try and define which kind of modernity I'm using. I guess the most useful and applicable one here is the one that's common to the social sciences, that associate modernity with the historical peaks in Europe, namely the Renaissance, the French Revolution, and the Industrial Revolution. These high points attribute cultural superiority or civilization discourse to the West, the sovereignty of the modern nation state to the people, and the end of feudal rule, and the beginning of industrial capitalism. Collectively, they mark a rupture with the past and propelled Enlightenment thinking and liberalism, secularism, the concept of the modern nation state, faith in science and technology, progress and development. But they propel all this globally, right? Through colonialism, through cultural imperialism, and later through globalization and cultural hegemony. Critics like Raminda Bangra point out in Rethinking Modernity that such sociological understandings of modernity as universal and timeless actually hide modernity's Eurocentric character. Bangra proposes that sociologists studying modernity need to include a post-colonial analysis and make a connected historiography to understand that European or American modernity was made possible by colonialism and encounters with the other historically. So through trade, through cultural appropriation and knowledge exchange, through the channeling of raw resources from Southeast Asia back to Europe, and the opening of new markets in the colonies. More insidiously, the discourse of modernity has successfully established Western knowledge systems as superior and to be universally adopted. Most of us unthinkingly support the idea of a singular modernity that emanates from Europe outward to the rest of the world. So this sense that modernity is something that is just diffused, and the diffusionist model. Likewise, Walter Mignolo in The Darker Side of Western Modernity states that modernity's very existence hinges on coloniality. He says there is no modernity without coloniality. And Mignolo then calls for a decoloniality to accompany our understanding of modernity. Decoloniality entails deconstructing Western modernity by regarding Western modernity not as a definitive ideal, but by recognizing how it came to achieve global cultural power and hegemony through the sidelining and erasure of other indigenous and civilizational forms of knowledge, marginalizing other systems as inferior, irrational, imposing a single system that doesn't allow for contradictions and non-linearity, instituting the colonization of space and time, for example, through the measurement of time using clocks, worldwide standard time, mapping the subjugation of peoples, not even deemed human, and in the exploitation of labor and expropriation of man. In calling for epistemic disobedience and delinking from the magic of the Western ideal of modernity, he suggests shifting the geography of reason and enacting the geopolitics of knowledge. To this end, he mentions progressive Muslim thinkers in their search for justice who are, quote, rebuilding the categories of thought embedded in their languages and histories. And here he cites thinkers like Malaysian Said Naqib al-Atas, who called for the Islamization of knowledge to come closer to the idea of decolonizing knowledge in the collective project of modernity/decoloniality. Both Al-Atas and Mahathir believe that Islam as a complete way of life precludes secularism, the idea that religion can be kept separate from the public realm. Such alternative, and one should add idealistic, systems of knowledge fill the plural universe of ideas that decenter our reliance on the Western model of modernity. Dain's placing side by side of three epistemological systems in Dukun offers up a representation of the pluriversal discourses that may be said to produce a Malaysian hybrid condition of modernity. Yet, like good colonial subjects, we've memorized and internalized the rubric of Western modernity as something inherited from the Enlightenment and that should brought no contradictions. Thus, modernity is a source of anxiety for Malaysians trained in liberal Western thinking. And similarly so for religious conservatives who regard particular elements of Western modernity, like human rights, as a threat to their traditional beliefs, political, cultural rights, and power. For liberal and rational thinkers, the long-lasting belief in black magic is cringeworthy and a sign of modernity as an incomplete project, or of Malaysia's post-colonial time lag of cultural difference. So, for example, the very public performance by Raja Bomo, his real name is Ibrahim Madzin, but Raja Bomo means he's like the king of all shamans, who, with 50 years of experience, volunteered to find the missing Malaysian Airlines plane MH370 using coconuts, bamboo sticks, and a magic carpet. Courted ridicule and jokes as these images circulated on social media. It's read as a national embarrassment. However, perhaps Raja Bomo, who has since repented, may be an extreme example of the charlatan as Bomo. Charlatan because he confessed that he was paid to pull off these public stunts. He also tried to save us from North Korea after the assassination of the Kim Jong-un's uncle in KLIA at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. But look where he learned how to be a king of the shaman. He learned from P. Ramlee. He learned from old Malay films. So many others. So despite these sort of charlatans and Bomos, many others still exist, and their services are sought by urban Malay Malaysians, including educated ones. In fact, the practice of traditional animist beliefs have adapted to modernity in the form of appropriating technology for fun. So this is kind of a parody of Raja Bomo. These are apps, Bomo apps. So this kind of magic can appropriate technology, just as Islam can be said to be commodified in Islamic fashion and the halalization industry, or made compatible with material progress in what characterizes Mahathir's Islam. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you look at Dain's film, here it's based on the real life case of a shaman. She had murdered a politician in 1993 in a cleansing ritual, much like in the film, after agreeing to make him invincible for a princely sum of 2.5 million ringgit. Now, I was gonna get her picture to show you, and then I had this. Even educated people are affected, that it might not be such a good idea to have her on my laptop. Because she did say, as they were going to put her, she was being led to be hanged, she said, she will not die. Okay, so moving on to Interchange. So if there's time, I will talk about Dukun, but I want to talk about Interchange. The film's title explicitly draws on the exchange or clash of two different systems of beliefs: Western rationalization and science versus tribal belief. You see that, like tribal belief, Birdman can see the wings, and then on the other side, the detective, who represents science. So reviewer Kathy Rowland describes this best. Interchange sits at the junction between different belief systems and ways of knowing, ancient and extant, within an urban Southeast Asian landscape, where Adam and Eve were punished with the loss of their immortality. In Interchange, Eva, with Adam's help, must return the gift of death to her people. So here, Christianity and tribal belief intersect, most especially in the two main 21st century characters, Adam and Eva, whose names symbolize the biblical origin of myth of Western civilization, but who are hybrids. Eva is actually a 100-year-old native kingdom from Borneo in disguise, while Adam, who's also from Sabah, admits to being half here and half there when asked if he's the police. He's actually not. He's kind of indie, freelance forensics photographer. Self-reflexive characters make jokes about their names upon introductions when Eva pays Adam a visit. You can read the dialogue for yourself. So in the end, Eva, who has manipulated Adam, sounds familiar, right? Adam is the forensics photographer. She manipulates him to retrieve the remaining glass negatives from a metropolis property room, gets him to kill her to release her spirit. In a futile and belated attempt to stop Adam from stabbing her, Detective Jason, over there, shoots Adam dead. So read through the lens of film genre, Eva plays the Tingam femme fatale who leads Adam, the patsy, down the proverbial rabbit hole. Like all good noir, the detective character Man, short for Azman, can only witness rather than stop fate. Thus, film noir and hybrid decoloniality play with Catholicism by bringing into play different epistemologies and theories. Film historian and critic Hassan Mutalik, when asked for his take on Interchange, volunteers that it reflects an outsider's or foreign view. This is not untrue. The exoticization of the Tingam tribe, you can kind of see that, because actually no such tribe exists, and the word Tingam means hornbill, which is the spirit guide of the tribe. And you also see this in the kind of non-place nature of the super-modernity, to kind of quote Marc Mochet, that's represented in the industrial architecture. There's a lot of glass, brick, metal, and iron frames, white concrete, non-iconic skyscrapers, and the nameless cosmopolitan tropical city. And it's always tropical, so even among the urban you see green. There'll be kind of like plants growing out of concrete, stuff like that, greenery in unexpected urban jungle. Okay, so through all these you see this there's a kind of anonymous identity that marks the city, that is marked by the pun or the different accented metropolis, the word metropolis for metropolitan police, and metropolis, a large urban city that could be the capital city. So this is kind of like KL, but it's not marked as KL, it's not indexed as KL. So equally, the tone, genre, and style pay homage to transnational modernist circulations. Adam's existential crisis demanded the actor Idil Putra to familiarize himself with European existentialist literature and film. And there are intertextual references to Rear Window, Blade Runner, and film noir. And also magic realism of Latin America, and of course, Karl Lampholz's ethnographic travelogue Through Central Morning. Yet traveling theories are seldom imposed and adopted in whole. They face local resistances. So in its new geography, as Said reminds us, the now full or partly accommodated or incorporated idea is, to some extent, transformed by its new uses, its new position in a new time and place. And this new position is the Southeast Asian archipelago, or Nusantara. The Nusantara, in which the director expressly wanted as setting. So he says that we always live among spirits. And here he's really talking about what it's like to be from the Nusantara, from Malaysia. We always live among spirits with different beliefs, with those from different tribes. So to get back to Hassan's point about whether Dain brings an outsider's view, I think actually what Dain does is to bring together these transnational ideas, but makes them uniquely reflect Nusantara modernity. As a Malaysian filmmaker well acquainted with Homi Bhabha, he identifies with this, in his own words, the post-colonial subject who always has to experience and engage with the liminal in terms of space as well as time. Liminal characters populate Interchange. There are the victims, who are the Tingam victims, and you'll see in the first scene I'll show you there's been a murder, and when the cop interviews the witness, the bartender says he's an illegal or a pendatang asing, a foreigner. And they also, in the first scene, we also see Belian, who's the birdman, and we also see transgender characters. So these are kind of liminal characters.